Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Peace Mitchell, and I'm co-founder of Osmompreneur, the Women's Business School, and Women Changing the World Press. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that I work and live on, the Mamu people of Far North Queensland. And I'd like to pay my respects to traditional owners right across Australia, past, present, and emerging. It's now my great pleasure to introduce some of the authors of our brand new book. Our book, The Women Changing the World, out now. And today I'm chatting with a couple of our authors who've joined me who have written chapters for this incredible book. Hi, Heidi. It's wonderful to have you here for this session. For people who haven't met you before, would you please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about who you are and the work that you do?
Sure. As you said, I'm Heidi Conway. I'm a co-founder of our business Changemaker Teens Global, where we help parents and families with their communication and skills required to really hold the space for their teenagers on a home education journey. So to allow them to be who they are. So we always say there's lots of curriculum and events planned by other homeschoolers, but where people and families get stuck is in the communication and allowing them to be, and the frustrations. And we see there's a lot of wasted time, energy, money, even on some curriculum, because it's not tailor-made for the child. So we help get everyone on track for that, and basically a few other things, but that's the main thing. We've got some teen courses to help them discover their passions and their ikigai, their talent dynamics for young people, to work out the way they learn, the way they love, and the way they lead. And that certainly helps the communication as well. And we've got learning dojos, which are places where the social side. So we say what we do is simple. It's self-directed learning. The concern of home educated families, that we do offer environments in the hybrid learning, that it's one-on-one in mentoring, it's group online training we're inspired by Galileo, and also the face-to-face in groups with the dojos. So there's lots we do. I don't know if I've answered your question, actually. I could talk for hours.
Thank you, Heidi. Yes, I think you did answer the question. Nicole, I'd love to go to you now. For people who haven't met you before, could you please tell us a bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I'm Nicole, and I'm one half of a company called Inspired EC. So it was a company that I founded with my business partner, Tash Treverton, and we started about 13, nearly 14 years ago now, but we've been working together for about 18 years all up. But essentially we do training and consultancy and resources and services, all sorts of things for early childhood educators and for children and families. So our motto, which you can kind of see up the back there, is that we are changing the world for children, and that's ultimately what we want to do. So everything that we aim to do, whatever programs we start or new initiatives that we have, are all just focused around how we can make an impact for children, how we can support others to do the same. So that kind of manifests in all sorts of things, lots of conferences and events under normal circumstances when we're not all stuck at home, but lots of that sort of stuff, and family daycare, out of school hours care, nature play programs, lots of child friendly things, very outdoorsy, nature based kind of stuff, but very important stuff.
Yeah, it's awesome. Thank you, Nicole. For Tina, hello and welcome.
Hi there, everybody. How you doing?
Hi, Patina. For people who haven't met you before, I'd love you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about who you are and what you do.
Thanks again. Hey, Peace. Yes, Bettina Tiemann from Cairns in Far North Queensland. As an Indigenous business owner, I just want to pay my respects to traditional owners, past, present, and emerging. I have Complete Business Solutions and II Hub and a bunch of other businesses. And what we typically do is we're a one-stop shop for business. So whether it's mentoring, business coaching, grant and tender writing, business document development, marketing, governance system, software development, we do the whole kit and caboodle. And then we have an 800 square metre business hub here called II Hub, which people can access at low cost for co-working, private office, training room, meeting room hire. And we're establishing another one in Port Douglas and Northern Peninsula area, which is the tip of Cape York. So, and I've actually been on a Zoom today to launch one in PNG as well early next year. So I'm pretty excited. And for me, it's all about helping the marginalised and disadvantaged people who typically don't have access to resources and business support.
That's incredible. Congratulations on Papua New Guinea.
Yay. It's been a dream for about 3 or 4 years. So
yeah, that's fantastic. Fantastic. Well, I'd love to dive into your chapters now. So Heidi, we'll come back to you. I'd love to hear more about your story and what you wrote about in your chapter.
The story is actually called Learn and Earn, from contention to connection. And really, the learn and earn part is about being you and being yourself and being allowed. So really, despite the title, it really is all about being allowed to be yourself and finding out who that is. So, and why we would do that. So, and we go through an experience that I had recently where I really was alarmed to tune in and think that we allow each other in society, really, you know, on a scale. I said that was a coaching tool I use, on a scale of 0 to 10, on how much do we allow each other in society to be ourselves. And I got 2 out of 10. And there's pockets that, you know, people allow different amounts. And in integrity with that and what that means. I'm very, very precise when I'm coaching, listening to people's words and pointing out that appropriately that would be the reason why they're experiencing contention in their world, or actually they end up realizing that themselves. So 2 out of 10. And so then I went through a process in the book of a 4-step process on how to change that to achieve more connection with yourself, in alignment with your purpose, and to move and make that commitment and move forward.
Yeah, and you talked about contention in your presentation this morning, and you know that when we're conflicted with something and uncomfortable, it's important to make a change and do something about that. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, well, it's definitely be the change too. So that the contention and that anguish or fear that might come up and that we might be seeing, and everybody might be seeing their own little bit of contention and feeling it in their own lives at the moment, the things that aren't working and making them feel a bit yuck, to actually lean into that and appreciate that. It's hard, I know, because lives have been, you know, turned topsy-turvy. But to be still and to lean in and find out, well, what would I prefer instead? And then focus on that. And I'm even seeing, you know, when we allow people to be themselves, that are we judging people? Are we, for example, you know, at the moment in a pandemic, there are people that it appears that are quite angry because they're in victim mode, and we don't actually always realize that we are in victim mode, but then actually judge even the politicians, and you know, oh my gosh, I'm probably going to get, well, why not? They're doing this to us, they're doing this, but they are they, like, I always see the best in people, and it's the policy and whatever they're lost. I know a lot of my friends are actually praying for the leaders of the planet too, for them to see the truth and to feel, what's right. But I don't think we're getting anywhere. Just like if there was an injury in my body or something going on in my body, I'd actually learn to accept that, just because it's showing up through different people, to accept what stance they have, but don't agree with it. And so I think there are some people doing that and moving forward and taking responsibility for what's happened. And there's other people that are saying, well, I am the victim. There is this contention, I am the victim, and it should be different. Yeah, so I can relate that to a conversation here that I've actually had with my husband, and he doesn't want to go there with some of that conversation, because some of the things that we need to change because of the events in the world that are changing, we pretty much decided at the same time, we actually want to do that anyway. We want to do this anyway. So now we look at each other and say, anyway, and whatever happens, we will deal with it, but those changes that we look like we're being forced to make now, example, grow a veggie garden or whatever, whatever people are out doing, we want to do that anyway, change what we were doing and be happier in, my husband's work and not work with certain clients. Well, we wanted to do that anyway. So let's just relax and take responsibility and move forward. You'll be much more energetic that way, from contention to connection.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Heidi. Nicole, I'll go to you now. Tell us about your chapter.
So Tash and I essentially decided to tell our story kind of in order of how it happened, in chronological order. And so we kind of started with how we met, working in an early childhood service. When we met, I was fresh out of TAFE. I just got my diploma for early childhood. Tash was working as a casual. We both met in a childcare service and just clicked. And we've gone on to call ourselves professional soulmates, because that seems to be the title that fits for us. But it's sometimes, I think, when we stop and think how far we've actually travelled and the steps that we've taken to get to where we are now, I think it's a really interesting journey for us. And so that was what we wanted to explore in the book. And I think it's a good example of how you just never quite know what's around the corner. I never intended to work in early childhood, nor did Tash. We both just kind of fell into those roles and quickly discovered that actually we were pretty passionate about it. And then each step after that, from setting up our own business, or what's now kind of referred to as a side hustle, but we set that up just out of need, and people asking us to do it, and we kind of went, all right, let's give it a go. And we've had that attitude the whole way. And I think everything that we've implemented has been based around that. What's there a need for? What's going to make a difference? What do we love and enjoy to do? What can we share? And I think that's our angle, I guess. And we've sort of talked about how we started with training and consultancy, and then we moved into actually sort of walking the talk again, I guess, because we had worked in early childhood for a number of years together. Then we'd sort of stepped away from that and we're doing what we were doing. We wanted to actually be able to say, we still do that. And so we still do that work now, which I think is really meaningful for our sector. So we talk about that. And then we talk about nature play program initiatives and things that we've sort of established along the way. But I guess our message is sort of, not putting yourself in a box to stay there, but just change will evolve and things will come up and you'll take another step and take another step. We don't really know what the future might hold either. We've got things that we want to do and, big plans and ideas, but it just really depends on what comes up. And I think one of the key things too was around, particularly for women in business, was around our team and how we manage our team, and balance the child-centeredness with that, actual business side of things as well, because it is a tricky balance sometimes. So that's sort of where we focused. We really wanted to encourage people to see childhood as an important time, whether you work with children or not, whether you have children or not. I think we all, as a society, have a pretty important role to play in ensuring that children have, a magical, wonderful, amazing childhood, and, particularly children who don't have those opportunities, that we actually make space for them to have those opportunities. And that might mean supporting families, giving families better skills to be able to provide those opportunities to their children, or supporting educators to do that in the early years. Providing resources that support them to do that, things that, add value to the lives of children. But yeah, I guess it's just knowing that we can all make pretty small changes that'll make really big differences for children.
Yeah, it's wonderful the work you're doing, and you really are becoming leaders in the space as well. You have people reaching out to you asking for advice all the time.
Yeah.
Has it always been like that at the start? Were there people like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this way?
Pretty much. Although some people, and it's still the case now, some people can be a bit, why would you do it like that? When we were working in a preschool together, so this is about 2005, we started taking children out on bushwalks and spending time out in the wild natural space behind our service that we were working in, and people thought we were crazy. And with the regulations the way they were back then, it was hard work. We had to do a lot of kind of planning and box ticking to make sure it was safe to do that, but we could see the benefits for children. And we were inspired by some of the work that was happening in other parts of the world, forest kindergartens in Europe, and we went, we need to be able to do that here. And there were a lot of people who went, you're mad, why would you do that? What about snakes? What about, all these things? But then there were other people again who said, we want you to show us how to do that. And for us, it's not about creating a model that other people can replicate. It's about inspiring people to find what works for them and what works for their individual communities and the children that they work with, and those sorts of things. So yeah, it's always, and that's why we chose the name that we did. It stands for Inspired Early Childhood, because that's the whole aim, is to inspire people, not to say, hey, you must do it this way, but actually to prompt people to think, how could I make a difference? How could I do something a bit more exciting or different or engaging or whatever?
Yeah, it's amazing. And what challenges have you faced along the way?
There's been lots and lots at different times with different things. Obviously, it's always a financial challenge, because our initial work, so when we both started working in early childhood, we both worked for a community-based not-for-profit service. So we were in that space. We were in a low socioeconomic area. We had a number of families in really challenging situations. So we were always in that mindset of, you do this because you love it. It's not about the money. It's not about, making a profit. Well, as we know, when you get into business for yourself, you actually kind of need to make money. And so that's always been a challenge, just balancing that. We always say that we call our business a profit for purpose business, because it's not about, well, we're just making profit to line our pockets and go on big overseas holidays. Not that you can, but that's not been the aim. It's been about, if we can make a profit on this particular program or product or whatever, if we can make a profit on that, then we can reinvest that into doing something else. And like this year, we set up an out of school hours care service at a local Steiner school. And we knew when we set it up that for at least the first 6 months, it would run at a loss. But it's a longer term game, and you've got to kind of get out of that mindset a little bit. So there's been that sort of challenge. It's always a challenge working with children, like, our own children, but we've really designed our business around that, and we've had to learn a lot about boundary setting and also being an example for our team. We want our team to put their children and their families first, then we need to show that we can do that too. And sometimes that's saying no to things that we really want to say yes to, but that we know don't serve our family goals. And, you know, that can always be a challenge too. But I think that's one of the biggest challenges for, you know, women and mothers in business, is trying to balance the things that you know you really want to do, but also you really want to spend your time with your family too. So it's finding that fine line.
Yeah, I think it's something that everyone who is a mother and runs a business has to balance or find a way to manage.
Yeah.
How do you create that balance between working and achieving goals, but also family?
For Tash and I, we're really good that we've got each other. We hold each other accountable. So we'll often say to each other, so I don't typically work of an evening. Like, I prefer not to travel. I'm much happier doing a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, whereas Tasha quite enjoys to travel and has always been happy. She's far more social. She enjoys going and visiting people. And, you know, so we've kind of set those boundaries in place. And, you know, sometimes things will come up and I'll push outside of that comfort zone, but other times I'll say, oh, this is on and it's on a weekend. And she'll look at me and she'll say, what would you say to me if, and I'm like, I would say, don't do it. It doesn't fit, don't do it. And she's like, well, there you go, there's your answer. So we hold each other accountable a fair bit. But I think too, like, we've both become absolute mavericks with our Google Calendar, and, you know, making sure everything goes in there, all our family commitments go in there, so that anyone who books things, like anyone on our team who tries to book a meeting or tries to coordinate something for us, can see, oh, actually, you've got a child with a dentist appointment on that day, so I won't book it in. And, you know, just all those kinds of practical things. I think you've got to have practical strategies rather than just that big ideal, because I think the big ideal can be great, but unless you've got things to actually make it work, and for us, it's definitely our calendars and, you know, as I say, holding each other accountable, then I think it's very difficult. But yeah, we're also really mindful of the fact that we're setting an example for our team. So if we would expect our team to do something, then we'd expect ourselves. And likewise, if we wouldn't expect our team, why are we expecting ourselves to do that? So it's, you know, about being kind of realistic and just weighing up, you know, what does this opportunity mean for us long term? Is this something that's really going to benefit us personally and as a business? Is it worth doing, or is going to, you know, my child's music concert being more important? Well, then, yeah, it is. So we don't do it. So yeah, it's hard decisions sometimes, though.
Yeah, I love that though. And I love that you are consciously and intentionally thinking about how you will be a role model for your team.
Yeah. And for our children too. Like, we often think about the fact that, like, our children are seeing how we work and how we balance family, and we're conscious of the fact that we're setting an example then for them as they become adults and eventually parents, if they choose to do so, that they'll see that that's actually, you know, like a healthy model, I suppose, you know, that mums can work, mums can, you know, they don't have to just stay home and they don't have to go to work all the time. They can find a balance of the two, and they can, you know, pick and choose what they want to do. And, you know, dads can do that too, but it's just creating those spaces for that to happen.
Yeah, no, I think it's fantastic. Thank you. I'm going to go to Bettina now. Bettina, I'd love for you to share about your chapter and the story that you wrote in this book.
Thanks, Peace. So my chapter is actually called "Using Your Past to Build Your Future," and that is based on my true life story, which started in tragedy with my father being killed in a car accident whilst Mum was pregnant with me, having multiple stepfathers after that who were physically and sexually abusive of my sister and I, and then every time my mother broke up a marriage, we would have to disconnect from that father and the extended family, school, friends, anybody and everybody else, to then relocate to another town. In a lot of instances, it was another state. And that created a sense of fear of abandonment within me, and a fear of emotionally attaching to people. So, you know, I don't have a lot of friends. I struggle with, you know, connecting long-term relationships with industry and networks, etc. You know, I love to build business because it keeps me challenged and rewarded, and not focusing on the emotional stuff, because, you know, that was something that I really had those, you know, I was raised without emotional attachment. And, you know, through all of that, you know, the abuse and the constant transition and relocation and abandonment and detachment, I built up a unique sense and strength in resilience, because you know, I was left at the age of 15 on my own. You know, my mother relocated to a different state, and I had to board with strangers, and I had to get a job to pay for the boarding, and I was still finishing school. And, you know, I wanted to be really good at what I was doing at school, which was secretarial studies and things like that. And, you know, from there, I kind of went, well, I have a choice. I can either cry and go belly up, and you know, end up in the gutter, or I could do what I've got to do, suck it up, and just get on with life. And that's what I did. And that's you know, that's what's empowered me to be so strong and independent and resilient, to develop and grow personally and professionally to the person I am today. You know, it's been a hard journey along the way, even through my adult life, because a lot of the stuff in my personal life, you know, impacted my adult life. And, you know, I went into modalities of spiritual healing, and I did past life regression work, and I studied counseling and coaching and a whole bunch of spiritual stuff, you know, crystal healing, Reiki. I actually became a spiritual healer. I had a clairvoyant tell me that then I was going to get in front of training with classrooms and train and be a keynote speaker to hundreds of people, if not thousands. And I just laughed and I went, yeah, right. You know, I'm currently a single mum in Sydney, and I've, you know, in the design and print industry, who's going to listen to me, and what goods have I got to share? And, you know, it was really weird, because, you know, I couldn't rely on family. I didn't have any connections with family. And I thought, well, hang on. I was looking for guidance and direction. I rang this, you know, 1300 or 1800 psychic number, and I got the guidance and direction that I was looking for, and I paid for it, so I probably should take some notice of it. And at the time, or a short time after, I was actually engaged to build single-handedly the legacy of the 2000 Sydney Olympic Games. That's my claim to fame. It won international acclaim. But as is true in Patina's style of things, I got really bored with that, and I went, oh, what am I doing next? And, you know, I couldn't have that connection with what I built, so I just jumped to something else and something else. And, you know, over those years, I then sort of, found my way, found my strengths in what I wanted to do, which was training and mentoring and coaching people, and providing a sense of support and belonging to people who were just like me. They were lost. They didn't feel that they had any family connection. They didn't have any friends. They didn't know who to turn to. They were stuck. And so I built my life and found my purpose now, and for the last several years, of being that tower of strength for so many other people who are stuck like me, you know, and in helping, providing that support, non-judgmental support and holistic support across personal, across professional, across life, across, you know, training, mentoring, coaching, counselling. I've been able to further heal my own journey, you know, and become stronger again. And so I now spend my life waking up every day doing exactly what I love to do. And today has been such a unique combination of, you know, meeting with you and presenting with you this morning piece, to then jumping into one of the classrooms of my hub here, and I've got a high school youth innovation program happening with one of the universities, so I'm lecturing those guys, and then I'm back to you, and, you know, and then I'm working with some Indigenous clients, doing some pretty cool stuff in remote, and it's just absolutely amazing. And the reason I was so proud to be able to be involved in writing the chapter in this book was I wanted to be able to share with people that it doesn't matter what your past is. It doesn't matter what your journey has been to get you here today. You know, you can get through any challenge as long as you're prepared to face it, as long as you're prepared to put your hand up and ask for help and ask for support, and you know, power through all the setbacks and the knockbacks and the challenges and front them face on, and you can become whoever you want to be. You just need to know who it is that you want to be, what it is that you want to do, and set those goals and manifest that into your life. So I've been able to use my past to build my future, to build my present and to build my future. And you know, I think the only thing I haven't manifested into my life that's on my goals right now is my convertible Mercedes. I'm practicing every day in my little $3,000 convertible 16-year-old Astra Bomb, and losing weight. So, you know, they're the only two things that I haven't really manifested into my world yet that's still true and dear to me to achieve. So, you know, I practiced when I was down at the Osmompreneur conference last week. I was actually hired a convertible Mercedes. And I'm like, yeah, this is cool. This is mine. And it's like a rental. I have to give it back. But, you know, part of that is the way I manifest things. You know, I make sure that I'm visualizing, I'm feeling, I'm sensing and experiencing, even if it's only a pretend convertible Mercedes, I'm doing it. I'm in a hub and I'm experiencing and feeling, and hey, this is now in the NPA or in PNG, and you know, it's really cool stuff. And that's why I wanted to share in my chapter all those challenges I've been through and what it can do to set you up for life if you're prepared to face the challenges and experience the journey.
It's an incredible story, Patina, and you know, so many hardships in your early years. And you know, I think going through those experiences and getting to where you are today, those experiences make you better able to understand what other people who are going through tough times are going through. Do you find that you're able to understand and relate to people better?
Oh, absolutely. And so much of the advocacy work that I do with government is you know, helping government people to understand those people who are experiencing those challenges, those people who don't have a voice, especially in remote communities of, you know, Cape York and Torres Strait Islands. They don't get the opportunity to have a voice to government. They don't get to be part of policy or program review. They don't get invited to be, you know, on the leadership roundtables, but they are the ones that are experiencing the hardships that the government really needs to support and understand the lack of resources and infrastructure and all those sorts of things. But it's no different for me than whether it's a remote community Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander person, or it's a youth, or it's, you know, a young woman who has experienced, you know, sexual abuse and rape as I have. You know, to me, those challenges are all within the same hardship basket. You feel shame, you feel embarrassed, you feel lost, you feel fear of people judging you if they hear of you. And, you know, that's why in this next book, I'm proud to share my journey of some of the horrible stuff I had to do as well, because other people are in that same experience, on that same path, you know, and they can get to experience the same things and the same enjoyment and the same fulfillment and the same successes that I have, if they know it's okay to, you know, that you're not going to be judged, that you will be accepted, you will be supported. Doesn't matter what you've been, where you've been, what you're going through, and who you are.
Yeah, I think that's the power of storytelling, isn't it?
Mm.
People will pick up your story and read it and relate to that, and then be inspired to make change, because if it was possible for you to make change and go on to do different things and create a better life, then it's possible for them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't think we should be ashamed of the hardships we've been through. You know, I'm proud to say, hey, I failed at business big time years ago, going into business with the wrong person, and we went belly up, $700,000 of debt, 23 creditors. I failed. But it was from that failure that I traded out of it, I paid it all out, and I've learnt from it, and I built different businesses in different ways so that we prevent going belly up again. And now I help a lot of other people prevent going bankrupt or insolvent as well, because I can understand it. I've been there, done that, and I can share that story, and I'm not afraid to share it.
And there's so many lessons we learn along the way.
Yeah, and I think that's what we all contribute towards this book, is that there's, from each story, there is something we each resonate with, and we believe in it, and it can just help so many other people.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, thank you, Bettina. Before we wrap up, I'd like to go back to each of you and ask, what advice would you give to someone who's thinking about following their calling to make a difference in the world? So I'll come back to you, Heidi. What would be that piece of advice that you would give someone?
Because normally I would actually ask them, and I would work through a process with them. But if they actually knew or thought they knew and weren't acting on it, the advice would probably be a question. If they didn't know, but it seemed like they knew, that they were dancing around. If you seek, that question, if you secretly knew what you were on the planet. I asked my children when I first brought them home from home education, for home educating, said, if you knew why you were on the planet, like if you knew you were on the planet for a reason, what is it? And they both told me. And so that would be my advice. Thank you, Peace. I just needed to get into flow there with what I do, because there's so many ways I can ask questions. But I said, okay, well, let's do that with our eyes, ears, and heart open, and one step in front of the other.
Yeah, that's powerful. I love that question. Beautiful. Thank you, Heidi. Nicole, how about you? What piece of advice would you give someone who was wanting to do things?
It's hard to wrap it up to one, but probably the main one would be just to trust your gut. And, I think you need to sometimes listen to that, because sometimes it tells you things and you ignore it, and it just doesn't get you where you need to go. And I was really enjoying actually listening to Bettina, because we're big manifestors too in our business. So I really enjoyed listening to that. And I think, trusting your gut and trusting kind of in the universe. It sounds so like woo-woo and hippie, but it is. It's trusting that things are meant to be as they're meant to be, and that what will happen will happen. You still have to work for it. Like I'm a massive believer in that. You have to put the effort in. But I think when you trust that actually, no, we're on the right path, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, then the obstacles kind of feel a little bit, okay, it's just part of it. It's just one of the steps to take, and we'll kind of get through it. But I think if you're not listening to that and you're trying to, and I'm like a very logical person too. Like I like things to be, a certain way. I like, I love a list and tick things off and whatever. But I think being able to go, okay, I've got the logic side of it, but what's my heart and my gut saying? And is that sending me in the same direction as the logic? And if it's not, then how do I get that all on the same page? So yeah, for me, it's a definite one of, trusting your gut, and, you'll know what you're supposed to be doing, I think, because you just feel it. And, I think once you start, it's like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. I actually had a conversation with my in-laws last weekend, and my sister-in-law said something about, I hate work. And my father-in-law said, everybody hates work. It's a job. That's what's supposed to happen. And I said, no. I said, I love going to work. So I love what I do. And he's like, oh, you might be the only exception. And I said, no, I think there are people out there who love what they do. And it doesn't mean that every day is easy. But I think when you're following that path of doing what you actually love, then the obstacles are kind of manageable, because, you love it and you're trusting that it's meant to be. And that's it. You just keep going in the right direction.
Yeah, I love that. And you should love what you do, and you should
absolutely
be doing work.
Life's too short to not.
Yeah, work that you feel passionate about.
Yeah, and I get that, for some people work is just work and they have other things that they like to do, but I don't know, I couldn't go through my life just, filling the days. It's like, I want to be actually doing something that, as I say, not every day is enjoyable. There are days when you think, oh gosh, that was hard, or this particular thing was frustrating or whatever, but you still keep going because you want to do it.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, Nicole. Katina, what advice would you give to someone who was wanting to make a difference?
I just want to tap into something that Nicole has just shared around the universe. Everything I do every single day, I don't pre-prepare for my meetings. I don't look at my diary until the morning of. The universe guides me in everything. And I'm not talking hippie fluffy stuff. I'm saying that every day I'm guided to do what I do. And every time something negative happens or I'm challenged in a particular way, I always ask myself, instead of like getting upset about it, I always say to myself, what lesson is the universe trying to teach me in this experience? What do I have to take out of it? So I have, I've had some really traumatic things happen just in the last 2 weeks, actually just before I went away to conference, and I'll share those in the future, but some really traumatic stuff. And as I was going through that experience, my husband kept saying to me, you should be completely distraught about what's happening. I said, I am, but I'm actually thinking, what is the universe trying to teach me from this experience? And man, it's really peaceful without my phone going off, I had half a day of no phone and no email. It was amazing. As far as what I would, what I would do, what advice I would give to people, don't start a business or don't expect when you operate a business, the government are just going to give you funding because you're starting a business or because you're in business, because it doesn't exist. It's a myth. You have to work for it. You started the business, so take responsibility and ownership of that and work for it. And if you don't earn enough money, pivot, diversify, JV with somebody, but there's always ways to earn money. And I think the other piece of advice would be, twofold, face the fear and do it anyway. It's one of my favorite books from the 1980s. Just whatever challenge happens, just face it head on, deal with it straight away. The most stressful things get rid of quick and easy so that you can have a free headspace to continue on with your day. And always put your hand up and ask for help. You've got an amazing network within the Mumpreneur and Women's Business School. There's such, thousands and thousands of people as a support network, but there's also so many other people within industry and government resources that you can access if you just do a bit of research and put your hand up and ask for help. Google's not always your best friend. It does have lots of information, but there's just so many other resources available that you can tap into any given day. You just have to be prepared to put your heart in your hand and go, hey, I need some help. I'm stuck on this, and don't play a know-it-all. Like, it's just, I do lots of stuff, but I don't know everything. And I'm always the first to say, I'm not asking you questions to make you upset. I'm asking you questions so I can learn more, because the more I learn, the more I can share.
Yeah, I love that. I think asking for help is so important. And so often we think we have to do everything on our own and like be a self-made entrepreneur, but actually there's people all around us and we can do things together and we can ask for help and support when we need it. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Katina. Now, Jacinta Warland has just joined us. She's also one of the authors of this book. Jacinta, hello. For people who haven't met you before, would you please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about you and what you do?
Sure. Can you hear me good, ladies?
Yes, we can. Yes.
I'm sitting in a wonderful friend's place with a fan going on me full ball because I think I'm a little bit what's the word? Menopausal. One of the things that really struck me with writing what I am about was really going back to my childhood and how blessed and absolutely amazing my life was compared to so many people out there that didn't have the joy of shared cultures and the inclusivity that I experienced. That grew my optimism when I looked at the world, and I didn't see the unhappiness and the hardships, I saw potential and positivity. And my husband now would say to me, yeah, you're always looking on the bright side, in a way that he feels, you know, I've easily trusting and probably would find the wrong people to trust, but I'd still hope for the best. On the other side of the scale is the opportunity to change people who are negative and unhappy with their world and bring about a change that makes them more positive. So my cultural training started way back when I was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, when I was living in New Guinea, and I was just included. When I came to Australia at 10, I didn't know that there was a rule for different kinds of relationships with people, and I kept forging my friendships with whoever and whomever and whatever race or background or ethnicity they were. If they were nice to me, I was nice to them. I made that a rule, and that's kept me with my whole life work, and that's why I've ended up loving the community stuff I'm doing, trying to work from a place of support and respect and valuing of other people's differences.
Yeah, I love that, Jacinta. I love that. And what would be the piece of advice that you would give to somebody who was wanting to make a difference in the world?
Wow. Trust your gut. Trust that weird hippie feeling. Trust that not every person is going to think or feel like you, but there is always going to be a common language of humanity in every argument or scenario that you're in. You'll find that there's a commonality that can be brought to the table and discussed in a way that can find peace. So I suppose a lot of my work is in the peace building area in terms of cultural change and managing the discussions that happen around, you know, native title and development and things like that on Indigenous areas. So a lot of my work is about two different parties not seeing the value of each other. So I try and bring that together and say to them, you know, yes, we do have differences, and yes, you have different projects that you're working towards or different outcomes that you're looking for, but we do have common things that we can work together on. So I try and support that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think if everyone in the world looked at situations in that way and tried to come up with a compromise that works for everybody and the best outcomes for all parties, I think the world would be a much better place.
I think, you know, trusting your intuition, your hippie feelings, your gut instinct, all those, you know, really grounded processes that Indigenous groups seem to have in innate ways, and the generosity of Aboriginal people and Indigenous people that I've worked with right across the world have been so incredible that it just makes me wonder why we didn't know or didn't want to know or didn't want to value Indigenous ways of knowing, you know, 200 years ago, 400 years ago, 600 years ago. The history of colonial incursions into Indigenous lands is very few stories of inclusive and proactive working with groups. It was much more combative. And when I hear the stories of how the Aboriginal people stood up for their own rights on country, and I've been exposed very recently to some more massacre sites that these particular groups want to map out, I really feel that these stories are so hidden from the real discussion. In, you know, we don't sit around the coffee table and talk about the massacre at Mumbai. You know, we don't talk about how the plantation or the sugarcane farmers strychnine the milk so that the babies were killed, but we need to. We've got to actually put that on the table and talk about it and actually come to terms with it. And then I think Australia can actually be something I'll be proud of. Say, I'm Australian, I'm not Aboriginal, but I am part of changing how we think and value people in Australia. So that's what I do. I get a bit soapboxy. Patina knows me. Sorry.
But Jacinta, it's so important. These are the conversations that Australians need to be having, to be aware of what's happened and things that happened in our local areas and in places that we all know.
Yeah.
But so much of that information has been hidden or covered up because it's not things that, that historically we've wanted to talk about.
It's not pleasant, but I mean, the histories of non-Indigenous people is not pleasant as well. I mean, there's some traumatic and awful stories about what some church groups have done to young people. And it's this time of truth-telling, this time of, really bearing the sins and making that attempt to come to terms with those tragedies, but also look at the good things that have stayed with it. I've got family that I've just become aware of that were part of the Mile Creek Massacre. Now, for those who don't know, that was the first massacre in Queensland that actually had the people that perpetrated it, the white fellas, sentenced for their actions. And my dad let it slip a couple of weeks ago that, that was Uncle Bill on the Buchanan side. And when I went back through all the information I had, sure enough, there he was. That's his name. So that side of the family, even though it's removed a couple of generations and a couple of sideways cousins and whatnot, it's still part of my history that I have to actually, and I feel very strongly now, I'm going down to Mile Creek area and going to go and talk to the TOs there and have a sit with them and have a truth-telling and see, if there's anything I can bring to the table with them.
I think there's so much healing in having those kind of conversations. I mean, it's going to be a painful conversation. It's a tragic thing that happened, but I don't think that we can have healing and we can move forward unless we face these truths and talk about it and what it means and try and find a way forward together.
I've been very blessed in the last couple of months of being involved with a pilot on a very small community. 43 families live in this particular piece of paradise, and it's got a dark history in that the massacre sites are already known and a few that have just been rediscovered, if you like. And what we're doing is doing a hope and healing program with the descendants and actually talking about how do we celebrate the strength of the people that died for country? How do we immortalise them and memorialise their actions of survival, of the ones that got away? The young fella that ate mud until he sicked up all the strychnine and came back to see all his aunties all dead. Let's celebrate him and actually put that story out there for people to talk about. And, hard yards, but I tell you, it's really made a impact and hopefully a positive change that will come out of this with a renewed valuing of the sacrifice from their families to be where they are now.
Yeah. Wow, that's pretty important work you're doing, Jacinta. It's incredible.
I love it. I wish I was doing it 20 years ago when we could have had, changes, better changes with better leaders. Oh, I won't be political, sorry.
It's okay. We can't go back and change the past, but we can do what we can in the present and we can continue doing our best into the future. And I think for all of us.
So thankful that you guys are even, thinking my story is interesting. It really does make a difference to what I'm doing.
Yeah, well, you're incredible, Jacinta, and
peace. No, stop it.
This work that you're doing is so important. It really is. And as a nation, we need to move forward and value everyone who lives in this country, and we need to respect the First Nations people.
I want to leave a legacy of equity.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Okay. It's this is the end of our session now, but it's been incredible chatting with you today. And each person in this book, there's 33 authors, each one of you brings something so unique and so beautiful, and is creating so much of an impact on the world in lots of different ways. And that's what I love about this book. It's just so special. 33 different authors with different backgrounds, different perspectives, doing different work, but everyone doing their part to make the world a better place and inspiring others. And that ripple effect that happens when someone sees someone do something and they're inspired to go do that too, then that's powerful. That's how we change the world. So congratulations to each of you for sharing your story with us today on this call, but also in your chapter here. I'm really excited for the future, and yeah, congratulations everyone. This is actually the final session of our festival, and what a powerful way to wrap things up. Thank you so much to all of you. Oh, look, you guys have got your books up as well. Yay.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. And I will see you all again soon. If you are watching and you don't have a copy of this book yet, make sure you order one. You will love it. These stories are incredible. Thanks so much, everyone.